Want to be in whisper mode.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I'm really good for myself. Yeah.
So Stacy is just working with him now.
Yeah, she quit her job.
Yeah.
So, did you go to Denver or did you go to?
Florida.
Oh, Brenda said you were going to watch Vikings. Obviously.
DNR.
Oh, okay. But she thought it was last, she thought it was last weekend. And I'm like, well, that big race was there last weekend.
You know,
It
we
wasn't
were,
no football.
we were there a month ago or see, hey, and
Hey,
they were,
or Matt.
by the Bellagio. You couldn't, we wanted to walk down there and watch the water rockets go, you know? Yeah. Well, they already had it blocked off with features and stuff. Yeah,
$1.4 billion.
huh?
$1.4 billion they put into that.
Really? I can believe it. They had barriers up a month. I mean, they had barriers.
The whole forest.
That was good to get a.
So behind, over by that Swedish kind of thing.
Yeah,
Behind there, they
Yeah.
built that pit padded.
Yeah.
It's at $500 million.
That's funny, because my mom probably told my wife. That she
Oh,
thought we
okay.
were gone, you know, we live right next to her, so
Okay.
she thought we were gone. She saw something in the yard, so. Texted my son, oh, that's Dad. They were gone. That's how rumors get spread.
Yeah. So, kind of follow up on a little bit. They had in the one practice, like a drain cover
yeah.
pulled up, so, and a car hit it. And it didn't do a lot of damage, 2 million or the
I had a
damage,
hot stand machine.
and it just hit the box.
Shot my little big day. My overshoulders.
It's ridiculous. But the race started.
And his son said, well, I'm gonna play the hot hand. I'm gonna whatever stand. Then he
I
shot.
wanted to. and I was telling
All out of your
you,
stand?
Yeah.
I wanted to watch it.
You guys didn't ask me if you could use my stand.
I'm like, all the last thing I remember, and it's
Yeah.
8 minutes, and I woke up at like 2 in the morning. It was over. It's like. All right. Last time we stayed at the Venetian. It was kind of right. We were looking at that sphere, but
Yeah,
it wasn't done yet.
okay.
But yeah, it's kind of cool. They said it's a 10-year deal, but you imagine. They're saying when they said strip was 6,000.
Oh,
So I mean, it's stupid money.
I thought we were there. I told Becky, look up when it's over. I thought it was like that weekend or something. Cause they had, no, it's a month from now.
No,
Like, really?
no, they'll have to tear it all down. Like I. So they should take paid. One thing.
And then they
tear
tear it
all
out.
down. But, you know, what a waste. I'm like, well, if it pays for it, you know. they can get
Maybe
it.
my
We,
packet gift.
they pass this on or what was it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's for you and John, or and Matt. No, just for the two of you. The 3 of us were at the thing, but
Yeah, I didn't.
I didn't realize they could cancel the NLX or postpone it till next week.
That, I mean, like.
I didn't see-
They
Oh.
added
So I didn't hear, it's like,
4 billion,
step.
you know. And it was just a big show, but that's what it is. It's so worldwide.
It's about the library.
Morning, Reese.
Okay.
Put that in the middle so we don't set the expectation you're gonna speak more.
Thank you. Hi, Reese.
There we go. Let's see, Art passed away,
Yeah, I saw that. How old was he?
91.
He's a good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. 10 o'clock. Before we start, just a reminder, if you have something to say, please step up to the microphone because the board meeting is live streamed and we want everybody to have the opportunity to hear. So with that, we'll call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public forum. Anybody wish to speak at public forum?
Eileen Gussie Croup, I guess I'm the elephant in the room here today. So I'm just going to say, after the review of the information that was done for a couple of weeks here with the property that was sold, that the county should not have sold, didn't have the right to sell, had an incorrect description. I think when you give big raises to department heads, you need to make sure that they're doing the job. I mean, that's my money too. I mean, it's just, there's got to be some comeuppance here when something like this happens. It's not all's well. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Bobby Butler, Roberta, but I go by Bobby. And my question would be, what are you going to do to correct it? And how do we know this kind of stuff hasn't happened before? I don't want my tax dollars raised to take care of a mistake that at this point I question, was it a mistake?
Anybody else?
I'll make this quick. You can answer to me other kinds, but I'm Kathy Horbach. And I'm just curious, looking at our chances to running, for commissioners are coming up again. What does that all entail? And I mean, is that in someplace on our website? I mean, the hours that you put in and how many committees you serve, how you're chosen to serve on a committee? Do you have some say in that? Is that who makes those decisions? Is there a place I can read about that, or someone can give me information specifically? So that I'm not saying I'm going to run, but I want to know more information about what it all entails, so.
I can talk to you afterwards,
You
Kathy.
can certainly talk to me.
Okay, all right.
There's also Association of Minnesota Counties. I actually had to look it up myself.
Okay,
I remember there's two things in there that jumped out at me. One, they say what's helpful is that having a business background or being in business is helpful, and also having a sense of humor.
okay. Well, those are important.
So the county is one that you can check that out.
My background is social work and education, so,
It also,
and health, so.
yeah, there's a lot of fiddling.
So it's a association, it's,
Association of Minnesota Counties,
Yeah.
AMC.
all right,
Yep.
and I'll check with you too. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that name.
Horbach,
Okay, thank you.
HORBACZ.
Anybody else? Well, look to adopt the agenda. Do we have any additions, corrections?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dave Minky, County Administrator, a couple of things.
On the section F correspondence, the Kettle River is accepting public comments. The letter has the wrong date. It should be January 16th versus January 14th. So the deadline is 16th for that. On regular agenda item number 1, typically this is on the consent agenda, but we added the list at your place this morning. So you actually have the list to include in the agenda. And then on number 2C on the regular agenda, with the regrades, there's a proposed regrade for the zoning and solid waste specialist that's being recommended by the Personnel Committee. If the county board approves that, if you would also direct the county administrator to negotiate an MOU with the union to implement that.
I'll move, Mr. Chair, amended.
A second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Lovegren to adopt the agenda with those notes made. Any discussion?
Yeah, under F, should the personnel minutes be listed under F? Of minutes of boards, reports and correspondence? I guess I don't see it in.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner
Yes.
Walton, we typically, the Personnel Committee, the minutes would go with the report typically, if that works.
Yeah, because I just see the Kettle River and Upper St. Croix. I see other ones, Kettle River, Allen. There's just nothing tying the personnel minutes.
It's on the Personnel Committee report.
Yeah.
There's where it says minutes attached.
Okay.
That's where the minutes are for that.
Here's the minutes.
Yeah.
And then they discuss them.
Any other? Not all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Approve of the minutes of the 2023 County Board minutes and summary for publication.
I'll move that.
Second that.
Motion by Moore, second by Lovegren. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do. On item 6, I actually got 2 copies of minutes. One is 3 pages long, one is 2 pages long. The one with 3 pages has everything numbered. So I just went off 6 on that one. It's the there was when we decided to change the unspent funds. Was there a check, were there checks already written now? For those 3 changes? One, I believe, is for the, help me here, Terry. One was for the yeah, next page. And one we allocated to the MLBO, and then there was 2 more, what, vote election equipment? Has those checks been written? No. Because on the minutes that I have, a motion was made, but there's no recording on the minutes of the vote.
You're checking this one here.
Yeah.
This is this. summary.
One is the summary, and the other is the actual minutes.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
hearing it at what I was given, I mean, we have the votes on the other stuff. It's just not on that. Just
Yeah, if-
the clarity, you know, like the labor negotiation, it's got the vote, it's got that one, it was missed.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Waldham, I think if you look on the full minutes, number 6 on page 3, Commissioner Lovegren moved to approve the following adjustments. And then I am not seeing the actual vote.
Correct.
So, yeah, so
There's an error.
yep, we will amend that to include the vote.
So you have to have a written copy of the minutes for it to be legal, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Not. We'll make those adjustments. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then under the minutes of the boards, reports and correspondence. We've got the plan from David Brown Associates on November 13th. Within Municipal Development District Fund, Rock Development Project at the Kettle River, Upper St. Croix Fund Plan, one watershed, one plan committee. Correspondence regarding the Kettle River and Upper St. Croix comprehensive watershed management plan, 60-day review.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes. The board's reports and correspondence.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do. Now, is this where it would be to bring up the minutes of the Personnel Committee?
No, the Personnel Committee will be discussed during the Personnel Committee report.
Okay, is that where we will approve, is that where we'll approve the minutes of the Personnel Committee?
We'll approve the minutes at that point.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then we've got the consent agenda in front of us. We've had that for several days. Any questions on that?
Motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Move on to the regular agenda. First item is the October disbursement. Claims over 2,000 attached, and that is the sheet there.
I'll move the disbursements over 2,000.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Upgren, seconded by Ludwig. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
Or did not vote. Personnel Committee report with the minutes attached.
On you or you? The manner. Okay, want me to go? Okay, yeah. We had our meeting on November 13th, and I'll just go through the standard of the Health and Human Services. We acknowledge the resignation of eligibility worker Christine Dillon, effective November 3rd, approve the backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Sheriff's Office and Jail, we ratified the separation of part-time probationary corrections officer Kaylin Bethke, effective November 3rd. Approve the backfill of that position, and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. In Auditor Treasurer, we acknowledge the resignation of Land Resource Manager Caleb Anderson, excuse me, effective December 1st, 2023. Approve the backfill of that position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Recommend the approval of the regrade of the Land and Resources Manager position from a grade 13 to a grade 14 to reflect increase in job complexity and responsibilities along with updated job description. That regrade was reviewed through the Springfield class and compensation system. Recommend the approval to regrade the assessor recorder position from a grade 14 to a grade 15 to reflect an increase in the number of employees supervised. The regrade was reviewed through the Springstead class and compensation system. And then recommend the approval to update the job description of the zoning and solid waste support and GIS specialist and update the position to office manager and regrade the position from a grade 5 to a grade 8 to reflect the increases in the job complexity and responsibilities. That regrade was also reviewed through the Springstead class and compensation system. In administration, update policy 10.7 on compensation to include the 15-year performance pay for employees who have reached their 15 years of service with the county and who are at the top of scale. Eligible employees will receive up to 2% performance increase on their 15-year anniversary following a satisfactory performance review. And an employee not awarded the 2% increase at 15 years will be reconsidered at future anniversary dates. Update personnel policy 11, leaves of absence to include the earned sick and save time. Came down with the legislation this year. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve things discussed then.
Did you include the, to direct the administrator to negotiate an MOU?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I'll back up to that. So then on item number 4, that's a Administrator Menke was referring to at the beginning that when we approve that job description for zoning and solid waste support and GIS specialist, changing that position, once we approve that, that will give the authority to Administrator Menke to negotiate the MOU with the union on that issue.
I'll second.
Okay. JJ,
Yeah, discussion
yep,
on item item 6, I believe it is, was it? Or under 4, I'm sorry. You have a grade 5. There's a starting wage of 1973. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
On the minutes. Number 4, Health and Human Services. The position is a grade 5 with a minimum starting wage of 1973.
Yeah, Jackie is online, Mr. Chair, if you want.
okay, Jackie,
Yes,
You
that
have
was,
salary?
yes, for the Health and Human Services position.
yep,
Yes, just give me 1 second, please. That actually, the position of eligibility worker, under letter A, that position is actually a grade 6. And the starting wage for a grade 6 would be $20.90.
Would the motion then have to be like this would, there was a motion made for a wrong grade and a wrong wage. So how do I just
You could make a,
oppose the minutes, I guess, based on this, and then how do we fix this?
yeah,
Mr. Chair?
yeah,
It looks like Jackie was looking at letter A. Now your question was on 4.
Yes, Commissioner Waldhelm mentioned the social worker position or the Health and Human Services position.
So eligibility worker is a grade 5 or a grade 6?
It's a grade 6.
Okay, so we should correct the motion to reflect that it should be a grade 6. And the minimum starting salary for a grade 6 is $20.90.
Yes.
And so, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Waldheim, if you wanted to make an amendment to the motion, you could do that, or someone else could make an amendment to the motion.
Somebody else can make the motion.
You sure can.
Well, here goes. I would like to amend this to have it be a grade 6 instead of a grade 5 with the wage of $20.90 based on the errors that were made. It's discovered.
Second the amendment.
Okay, we're voting on the amendment. Everybody understand that? There was that error in the writing it down. So all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we'll go back to the motion on the entire report in minutes. Any discussion on that? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
All right, motion carries. Move on to the Lower St. Croix Watershed biannual work plan. You remember how the watershed, Lower St. Croix watershed works is the work plan is presented to the board, and we have to send that back to all the entities for approval. It gets approved, and then the work can continue on that work plan. It's kind of like making a budget, and then departments can work within that budget. So what we're doing is approving the work plan that was approved by the Lower St. Croix watershed board. But by the way we're organized, it has to go back to each entity to get approved, and then it goes back to the board.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Seconded.
Got a motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren to approve the work plan. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just.
Yeah.
So like the way I believe Snake River Watershed is organized now, because they're joint powers, they don't have to come back with this. That's just the way you guys.
It's just the way it's structured for now. And I think it will change. So we'll be our own entity eventually down the road, but it was there was a compromise made.
Yep.
Of how to run it, and it works, and
Yep.
they're doing great projects.
Yep.
But any more discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Appointment of the zoning board. We've got openings because people terms are up. So one would be on District 2, Les Orvis, recommended by Commissioner Moore. District 4, Tom Jensen, recommended by Commissioner Waldham, and at large, Susan Grill, recommended by myself.
I'll make the motion for the appointments.
I'll second.
By Waldham, seconded by Ludwig. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
What's that?
This is Skips. Yeah.
Okay, border to border broadband grant program.
Mr. Chair, there's the local road improvement project.
Oh, I wrote it on the wrong spot. Support for local road improvement. Sorry, Mark.
So Pine City's applying for 1.5 million of local road improvement project funds. We're planning a $4 million reconstruction project on 4th Street. It runs along Pine Technical College. They kind of make that a project of regional significance because of the college there, so pretty ambitious, so we'll see. I think we've only gotten one over the years, and that was for the hospital road in Sandstone here, so we're not obligated to pay anything towards the project, but it does take some of our staff time and
Is it just the north-south portion? It's not,
gonna go out to 61 as well, so that'd be
but
Johnson Avenue like it was, yeah, so they need a resolution. They gotta get this application in by December 7th. We've done these for some townships and other cities as well, so it's nothing unique.
great improvement.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 2023-51.
I'll second.
Motion by Lundgren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Now we're gonna get the border to border broadband grant program update.
Mr. Chair, Leslie Sauter's online to make.
All right, Leslie, we're waiting.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Leslie Sauter, your Economic Development Coordinator. And before you, we have a couple requests. SCI Broadband, also known as Savage Communication, is looking for a resolution of support to do about 180 miles of fiber, which pass by about 1,300 homes and fill-in areas where they've already installed some infrastructure. East Central Energy is also making an ask. They have 2 project areas in Pine County, which will install about 211 miles of fiber and another 190 miles of fiber in the North Project, and pass by about 1,200 homes each. Both of these firms are looking to apply to the state's border to border round 9. We're calling it round 9 because they already had a 2023 grant application earlier this year. With that last round earlier, we didn't get any awards, so now we'll have three project applications down at the state to hopefully expand some more broadband. Their resolutions of support they're looking for is basically allocating the ARPA funding that we had allocated to both of these firms and from previous applications that they did to border that have been unused and unfunded by the state. So this is sort of a formality, but also a good update of where we're at with our broadband project. So there are 3 total resolutions in front of you today, 1 for SCI Broadband and 2 for ECE's Central and North projects.
Thanks, Leslie. I know both of those companies have been working on some of the previous stuff that they've got money for. And I think it's exciting that we can actually see the progress being made. We can drive down the road and see their truck, contractor trucks doing work. This would add to that. I think it's exciting, to think that we're moving forward to get every place in Pine County get passed by everybody's house anyway. And I think we set that as a goal a few years ago when we really started on this, and we've been able to secure some money through some aggressive grant requests and working with companies like this. And so I think it's terribly exciting. So thank you. Thanks to the broadband committee. Been great. Can we take these three resolutions at once? So we're looking for a motion for the three resolutions in one motion.
I'll move resolution 2023-53, 2023-54, and 2023-55.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren. Resolutions to move forward with the applications for SCI and ECE. Any discussion? Also, before we vote, I want to thank Commissioner Lovegren for her work on at the federal level, the state level, and the local level for really we've moved the needle a long ways in the last 3 years. You know, we don't think we have, but when you look back and see the progress that's being made and about to be made, it's quite a deal. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Budget update. Thanks, Leslie.
And just getting my presentation up. You all should have a printed copy as well. So Kelly Schroeder, Pine County Auditor Treasurer. And so I just wanted to bring you a budget update. Departments have been working on the budget, even though you guys approved the preliminary levy back in September, the work doesn't stop there. But departments have been working on any fine tuning that was needed. And so I want to just show you where we're at right now. I'm just gonna flip to the second slide just to kind of give you an overview of where we've been and where we're going. So way back in August, we started this whole process with the different department budget meetings. And once we did that in September, we moved on just to some general budget discussion. And then you actually approved the preliminary levy at that second board meeting in September. Since then, again, departments have been working on fine tuning, and that brings us to today, the budget update. Looking forward, on December 7th, we have the Truth in Taxation meeting, which is that public meeting where citizens can come learn about why our property tax levy is what it is, what our budget is, that type of thing. And then on December 19th is when you would be adopting the final budget in the levy. So just to give you a reminder of where we were, so the approved preliminary levy that was approved back in September was a total of a 4% increase, which was about an additional $850,000 of revenue into the county. And you can see the breakdown of where those dollars were going. Road and Bridge had a 7.3% increase, which was $150,000. And General Fund had a 5.2% increase, $643,000, and kind of down the line. And so bottom line was it was about a 4% increase. One important note on that is, and we talked about this in September, once you set the preliminary levy, the final levy cannot be any higher than that. It can only be that or lower. Just some highlights of where we were, and I think we're still there, of things that we got with that preliminary levy that we did. We added an additional assistant county attorney. We added an additional probation agent. We removed funding from that Snake River Conservation Board. That wasn't a huge dollar amount. However, that's been an ongoing discussion with the transition to the One Watershed, One Plan. Previously, we were annually having to put money into that. Now with the transition, we should not be putting money into that. The HRA EDA budget, we always had a small budget for the per diems and mileage and a few other things. However, that budget has moved to a fiduciary fund in that the county has their funds and we're going to be paying those bills with those funds and not with county levy dollars. We added 2 social workers in the Aging and Disabilities Unit and added a licensed clinical independent social worker. Both those positions did not have any levy impact because they're going to be paid for by those third-party insurance billings. And then the technology fund, which is that separate fund that we've had to fund technology things. We previously used to budget $100,000 in it. Over the years, it was reduced to 25,000, and this budget had it increased by 50,000 to back to 75,000. So those were what we had gotten in the preliminary budget. So that was what we knew in September. However, the budget is always based on assumptions. And so in September, we had some data from August, but most of our data was from July. So only about half of 2023 to be working with. And so we always have to make assumptions with budgets. And so we do the best we can. The revenues, we've got these county program aids, the state says they're going to send us. And so they've been good in recent years on following through on that. Our reimbursements. So like the Health and Human Services works a lot on reimbursements through grants and insurance billings and that type of thing. So just knowing that those things are going to be there and if we're estimating them correctly. When we built that preliminary budget, we also had to make an assumption on wages because we had 9 of 10 union contracts open. And so we just had to make an assumption of what the wages were going to be. And same with health insurance. The health insurance committee was still working through where the health insurance rates needed to be last year. So we had to make where they had to be next year. So we had to make an assumption of how much that increase would be. And then same with legislative changes. As we were setting the budget, we were just learning of some new legislative changes that were going to be having an impact on this budget. One of them you approved in the personnel committee today, which was the safe and sick leave. So that gives some paid time off to employees who have not previously had it. So all of those things were assumptions and some of them are still assumptions and some of them we have a lot harder numbers for now. So moving on, changes since the preliminary budget. So we were able to review some revenue lines. So that's money coming in. And when we reviewed those, there were places that needed to change. Most of them for the better, one of them for the worst. So things that were able to be increased were assessor revenues, soil and water, state grants, zoning and soil and water state grants, because those Bowser grants increased. Zoning, we hadn't budgeted anything for one watershed, one plan work that would be reimbursed, but we've added that in now. We didn't have any revenues in for our indirect costs for the evening reporting center. So we received 10% of all the costs of the evening reporting center as indirect costs to help pay for all of the work that we do that we can't charge to the grant. And so the evening reporting center grant was supposed to end, but now it's been extended. So we were able to add that revenue back in. Mark was able to refine some of his highway state aid dollars. Becky has all sorts of grants she was able to refine and reimbursements and all sorts of dollars in those two budgets that were able to be refined. The only negative on the revenue was that the attorney services to Health and Human Services, so Health and Human Services reimburses the attorney's office 8% for their total costs. And when we did that calculation, we did it as a straight 8%. But then Becky reminded me that we actually have to do that 8% and then subtract off 15,000 from it. Because that budget is she disappeared. All right. But that portion is already budgeted in the child support budget. And so that was just a $15,000 revenue decrease. But many of these things much overshadowed that small decrease in revenue that we had to do. Another change from the preliminary is personnel costs. So like I said, when we were setting that preliminary levy, we had 9 of 10 union contracts open and a lot of unknowns and question marks there. And since then, you have approved some union contracts. There's been some good progress in negotiation with others. So we were able to plug in more realistic personnel costs, which on the wages side was a slight increase. However, within that personnel cost also was our health insurance, which you set that amount last month, which was instead of being a 10% increase was a 9% increase. So that helped to offset. We also had to build in that 2% for the 15-year performance because that previously was not built in for those employees that would qualify for that. And we had to add, because one of those legislative changes was with para for employees who make lower amounts of money. We previously didn't have to pay para for example, our temp employees, but now we will. So that had to be added in. And then kind of the saving grace of all of that was thanks to Jeff. He had budgeted, he had seen the writing on the wall with his wages. And so he had already budgeted $200,000 extra in his budget to kind of plug that hole. So we were able to put the wages where they're supposed to be and then back out that 200,000. Other things that were changed were, I was just recently looking at the most recent budget report and reached out to the courts because the other court appointed specialist expense in court administration is trending very high. And so I reached out to Amy and she said just because of the mental health cases, they're having to bring in more and more specialists. So we just raised that budget by $10,000 to make sure that we're covered there. And then Terry just recently got the updated costs for next year for the juvenile center, which was about a $10,000 increase as well. And then throughout the budget, we just looked at where our current expenditures are, and we did all sorts of little minor tweaks of $1,000 here, or that needed could be less, or $1,000 more that could be there. And it really all kind of shook out to be a net zero. But there's all sorts of little changes throughout just looking at where we currently are, how much we've spent. Like things like that is assessor postage and the IT telephone and the courthouse utilities. All of those are just like little nickel and dime things that were changed, and they come up to a net zero. Questions on that? All right, so then we can get into really where all of these changes take us to today. In the general fund, for revenues, this is just a comparison of 2023 to 2024. Just a reminder, the 2024 revenues do include those preliminary levy increases. So when you're looking, for example, at the general fund, which went up almost $2 million, there is 650,000 of that increase in revenue that is due to that property tax levy increase. Highway, road and bridge, as you're looking at that, thinking, oh, why did that revenue decrease so much? Again, that's all project based and never really concerning because it ebbs and it flows based on projects. Kind of on the far side there, just an overview. When we look at the entire budget for revenue, we had $54.5 million in 2023 and 2024. Right now, we're sitting at an estimate of $55.8 million. So about an increase in revenues of $1.4 million. When you look at that increase in revenues of $1.4 million, again, reminder, there's about $800,000 worth of new levy dollars in there. On the expenses, looking at those major funds, you can see the changes. So general fund has about almost a $2 million increase in expenses. A lot of that is wages and just different spending of, for example, the new public safety aid that was received. And so that $2 million looks like a big number, but really when you boil it down to the big pots of what it is, it's really personnel and then just spending of these new aids that we received. I mean, there's other things too, but those are the big chunks. HHS has an increase of about $1 million. Mostly related to wages, and some different program things, new grants that were received, the MA unwinding type things of spending. And then road and bridge sees that decrease from 2023 to 2024, which again is project based. So when we look at the overview of the expenses for the whole budget between 23 and 24, you've got an increase about $1.4 million. And we've kind of talked about where those numbers come from. So when we look at the entire budget and compare our revenues and expenditures, in the general fund, you can see our revenues as taken from the previous slides is just over $23 million. And our expenses are at $22.9 million. And we're going to come back to that one. Health and Human Services, revenues and expenditures, that you'll notice the expenditures do exceed the revenues. And that is due to some planned spending of reserves, that Becky has with some, restricted funds and then just spending of her fund balance because they've done a very good job in recent years of adding to it. And then Road and Bridge is completely balanced because Mark is balanced. So when you look at the overall budget, revenue 55.7 million, expenses 55.8 million. So again, you're looking at an unbalanced budget, but that comes down to planned spending of reserves. And so that is okay to do. But I want to come back to that general fund piece. So if you notice, the general fund revenue currently exceeds the expenses with all of those changes we've made. So with that, that gives you some options or things to consider. So there was about $100,000, $96,000 worth of revenue that exceeded expenses. So things that you could do would be you could add back something that was cut. Instead of starting those new positions on January 1st, we moved them to a start date of March 1st so that we saved 2 months of salary and benefits. So that was about $34,000 you could consider adding back in and getting those folks in there sooner than later. The armored van was cut, which was $150,000, and then the sheriff lieutenant was also cut at $130,000. So that's some options. Another option that I'd like to mention, and we'll talk about a little bit on the next slide, would be to budget to add to the unrestricted reserves, which is a concept that we did in previous years when our unrestricted reserve accounts balances were very, very low. And we've got another slide on that. And then you could also just consider a levy decrease to the general fund. If you wanted to get rid of that entire $96,000 surplus that we currently have, that would bring you down to about a 3.5% levy increase rather than a 4% levy increase. So that's something to consider. There's obviously numbers in between there. As far as the budgeting to add to the reserves, I just wanted to bring this slide up again. So this is something that we've talked about at our general budget presentations is the state auditor's office recommends that we have an unrestricted fund balance in our general fund of 35 to 50% of our total operating expenditures. In 2012, Pine County was sitting at about 6% of our operating expenditures. As you can see, that was less than $1 million of cash sitting in the bank for us to use, which is a scary thing. In today's dollars, our biweekly payroll is about $650,000. So that's scary to think that that was all of the cash flow we had back in 2012. But back in 2012, it was recognized that we needed to do something about that. And so the board set a policy to have a goal of an unrestricted balance of 20 to 35%. That doesn't meet the state auditor's recommendation, but it was something that the board thought was attainable at that time. So you can see kind of throughout the years of what we levied and how that affected the fund balance. So obviously those years that we had levy increases, for the most part, we were adding to the fund balance. And some of those years, a lot of those years between 2013 and about 2018 were very intentional in that we were actually budgeting dollars to add to the fund balance. So you were budgeting that general fund with a surplus intentionally. The last few years, we have not budgeted for a surplus, and you can kind of see what's been happening starting in 2019 to 2020, we did really well. But then 2020 through 2022, really, we've been stable or going down slightly. And so right now at the 12/31/22, we're sitting at 23% of the operating expenditures in reserves. So that's one option that I wanted to bring up is maybe you should consider planning to maybe not the entire $96,000, but some of it literally levy to add to those reserves. That's what I've got. Questions?
Yep, go ahead.
So for me, how was it for you working the budget when we're around that 23%? I mean, you're doing the daily business.
Right. So it goes fine. In February to March, the bank account gets very tight because that's when there hasn't been any new revenues coming in since November, yet we've still been paying our regular bills. But in the recent years, we've been able to make it through fine. Yes, it gets tight. Like this February, I think we were down to about $2 million in the bank. Which is a lot more stressful than like right now when I'm sitting with about $12 million in the bank, just because property taxes were just paid. And it does get a little stressful because you never know, oh man, how much was our health insurance claims this week? And then we've got payroll of 650,000 coming. And so in February and March, I do a lot of monitoring and planning of when our investments are going to mature as well, to make sure, okay, maybe I want $1 million investment to mature in the middle of February so that if I need that money, I've got it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the state auditor's recommendation is up to 5 to whatever, does that hurt in our?
It does not. They like to mention it a lot. And I mean, it is best practice from their experience, and it's the recommendation. However, it's not that we get a mark on our audit or anything. It does come into consideration when we're issuing debt or refunding bonds. But hopefully in a few years, our debt will be paid off and we won't be worried about that. It'll be interesting in 2028, our bond on this building will be ready, could be called. And so then we'll just have to determine where interest rates are. Right now, obviously, we would not want to do it. But that's really the place that it comes into play quite a bit.
When do we make the decision as to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
When do we make the decision as to if we want to put it into the reserves or if we want to do something else with that?
I like direction as soon as we can. And it's helpful too to have a better concrete answer when we go into that December 7th Truth and Taxation meeting.
I have watched a few county auditors now. I've watched Larry and Kay and Kathy and Kelly all stress out because we don't have money in reserves and trying to figure out how they're going to get the money into the account to pay the bills, because all of a sudden wages are due, or like you said, the insurance is due or whatever. So I personally would like to see more money put into the reserves for the sanity of people that work with those and us.
I'm with you, Terry. I was here when we had.
Mr. Chair.
Barely over 1 month, barely over 2 weeks worth of cash flow.
Mr. Chair.
Scary time.
And it was tight. When we if you get to the point where you have to borrow money to pay payroll, that's not a good spot to be in. And I know a lot of counties have been there. They don't like being there. A lot of school districts have been there. They don't like being there. Yes, go ahead, Matt.
I kind of feel that way too, just because things are more expensive now. So our percentage didn't really.
Right.
So some of that is just costs too.
Right.
But I just, for my own satisfaction. So if we did, what would across our 30, some thousand parcels, it wouldn't amount to much on a change on levy really, would it?
I think if we go back and dig that sheet out, which I will do when I get home.
It's not much.
Right. Yeah, because it would bring you down to a 3.5% levy versus a 4% levy.
Yeah.
Which, if I remember right, on the sheet on.
It was $2 on mine.
Yeah, it's like $3 or $2 or something on my property. But every property is different.
It seems to me we work best when we sit around 25%. And I don't know if the costs are included, because things cost so much more. And then of course we have stuff happening.
I think so too, because it seems like we're trending on a slope that is not where we want to go. Because if we keep trending, we're going to be below 20% and we don't want to be there.
Yeah. See, Mr. Chair, I feel the same way, but I also don't want to be a banking.
Right.
I don't want to be banking at people's tax dollars, but there has to be that balance. So I don't mind that we go back and forth a little bit. So I think that's we're finding our sweet spot. Maybe you don't need to be at 35%. So
I think our sweet spot is in that 25%.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think too.
we can stay within a couple percentage points of that, I think we seem to get by pretty well.
I have a few things.
Yep.
The state surplus money that was given to Pine County. You have any, I think there was 200,000 given to the library. Was there 800,000 given to for public safety?
Yep.
There was
There's about 800,000.
100,000 given to soil and water.
Yep.
Missing any?
Mr.
Well, we got more program aid.
Yeah.
That's all included.
Sitting with the money, what, 400,000 left for the economic development position sitting there?
That was part of our ARPA money.
Okay. And then, I guess myself personally, if I had a choice between making payroll in my business or selling inventory, I would sell inventory. Because in business, the only other thing, maybe Josh could attest to this. If I'm sitting in inventory that I'm not making money off of, like, for example, the $23 million of land that we have sitting here. If I don't turn that inventory, I don't make a profit. I can't just raise my prices on everything else. Are we going to acknowledge the fact that we're also sitting with, off of last audit, $23 million of tax forfeited land that the resource of income for our county?
There's a decision, a US Supreme Court decision that says we cannot use those funds. So they need to go back to the taxpayer that they were forfeited from. So that is not an asset to have.
Actually, I reached out to NACO just the other day because I wanted to get a video that they had on something else with forfeited land. And she responded and she said, I think that you're calling about the tax court case, and you can sell all the land that you want, but you can't keep any of the funds. Anything over and above your amount right now goes right back to the person. And so that's from the national level, which I know Minnesota's working differently on that. And thank you for being part of that committee. It's nice to have all that information firsthand. But, right now it's not going to do us any good.
No, and I think there's a lot of things that have to be figured out because resources are there too, timber and all that, and we don't know. There's a lot we don't know until this case gets done.
And Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
that did have an impact on the revenue side of the budget because in previous years, the county would budget a revenue in tax forfeit land sales. For 2024, there is nothing budgeted as a.
Well, for tax forfeit land sales, there is nothing, but there's 50,000 for timber sales.
And last year we realized $330,000 timber sale. So it's not like we don't recognize that.
And then just if we put that aside, there's anything, can't use that, I guess. The comparables, just when you're trying to make money off of your land inventory, one that was just recently sold for $2,200. There's 15 other similar parcels with values from $26,000 to $103,900. Is there any way we could rethink the way we look at these values? Because clearly, just on those comparables, talking to realtors, realtor brokers, people that do appraisals, talking to bankers, talking to loan officers, it's a head scratcher for everyone that I've talked to. The prices, it's easy. We just sell a can of pop. I know there's some things there that one might have a better tree, one might have a better this, but these parcels are anywhere from 0.11 acre to 0.22 of an acre. You can see everything involved. It's not like you have to do a whole satellite survey of the property, but $2,200 value to $103,900. I think there's some money that's.
Well, and I guess I would like to see the list of
valuation
parcels, because when we value parcels, yes, we're looking at front foot, but we're also looking at, is it completely swamp? Is it a very steep hill and you could never build on it? So, we do get to further than the satellite view on them. We get to standing on them going, what would this be worth if there was a for sale sign in front of it? So I guess I would be interested for that list that you're referring to. And I'm happy to go through down them and explain why our value is what it is.
have them.
I do not have them.
Okay.
So if you'd send them, that'd be great.
I think the bottom line is right now, we can't recognize any revenue from any tax forfeited land. Until they resolve that Supreme Court case. That's just the way it is. So we'll get going.
I guess the revenue could be looked at, just the people that would now own it would be paying taxes on it. That would be revenue. If you sold a piece, that's not getting property tax. And the new purchaser, the new owner starts paying property tax, that's revenue, it's income.
Well, it's not new revenue though. It's just because your levy is still your levy. So unless you all of a sudden said, oh, we sold that parcel, that there's going to be $1,000 of taxes generated. So that's when we're going to raise our levy, because otherwise your levy is your levy. It's just that you and Terry and Josh pay a little bit less and those people are paying their part now.
I think the one thing that we need to recognize is our levy. Our levy is it's backwards math, you know, when you come to how much everybody's going to pay, and our tax rate has significantly dropped in the last 5 years. For sure, over 10 years. It was, I remember when it was 70+%. I believe this year it'll be about 48.
40.
Yeah. I remember when we
40%.
We worked hard to lower the rate for quite a few years.
Yeah, we were really happy when we got it to 67%. And some of that is absolutely, we had nothing to do with. It was because property values have gone up and our levy has stayed fairly stable.
New building.
Yeah.
But Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I do remember we did specify that was our goal, was to
Yeah.
lower the tax rate. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking about budget and everything.
Yeah, we were in the high 60s.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Our goal today is to get any direction to prepare for the Truth and Taxation meeting, so that presentation is as in alignment with what you think the final budget and levy will be, so that it's the most useful information we can provide. So
Do you want a motion or consensus here?
I would take a motion on
Well, I think we have a consensus about just adding it to the reserve. And I would make, take that, get towards the reserves.
that 96,000.
I'll second that one.
Motion by Moore,
Where's it going? Reserves?
reserves. Motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegreen to take that roughly $100,000, 96,000, I believe.
Yeah.
Put it in the reserve.
Mr. Chair, the number is 96,665.
And that could still change a little bit, but, any discussion on that? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I oppose.
All right,
Carolyn,
yes,
second, that motion.
Lovegreen. Okay, we'll move on to commissioner updates. WorkFast PCCI Scholarship Appreciation Lunch. Josh and Terry and I were there. It was a lovely, lovely presentation that was made. To see for our little bit of effort, the changes that we were able to make in a lot of people's lives, Pine County, and in employers and employees. Pretty phenomenal. We have a tremendous need yet for CNAs, probably especially, and they can't remember how many they turned out just here in Sandstone that went immediately to work.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I was at that graduation and they had to run out of graduation to get up to the office or to get to the facility to work that day.
Yeah.
And I wrote down how many, where was Sandstone?
Well, I would just like to say, like all the fire departments and first responders that they trained. I mean, here, 112 CPR certifications. 10 trained medication aides, 60 emergency medical responder recertifications, and 3 instructor recertifications. Was it, I can't remember the story they said about the one guy that had a heart attack, and the first responder that was there was just been trained by, it was
When he was one of the higher ups for the hospital here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he might have been in class with Teresa, because I think it was right around that area. But yeah, he was one of the first responders there and saved his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to figure out how we can keep supporting that. That's a in and out program really quick for them.
You know, the other thing with that was one of their needs is if anybody knows anybody who's a teacher for any of these classes, they really need teachers at Pine Tech. They, you know, a nurse doesn't get paid to teach what they get paid to be a nurse for. And so if somebody wants to retire from nursing and wants to teach instead for a bit, they really truly need teachers there. So if you know of anybody that's looking for something to do, call Joe.
Soil and Water District.
Yeah, pretty much same business as usual. I got a copy of the draft minutes. We're gonna have their retreat again. They're gonna line it up with the same day as the meeting for December. Forestry had a workshop up at the Moose Lake Brewery to talk about their buckthorn video series he's been working on. Everything else seems to be pretty much standard. Like I said, I got a copy of the draft minutes. Anybody wants them, they can forward it.
See the video on the buckhorn.
Yeah.
I need to get rid of a lot.
Kettle River Policy.
Yeah, we met on November 9th, and the meeting was called just to do the final review of our draft for our plan, which was in the minutes today. You guys saw the letter where, so we went through the whole plan, all of it, and then made the changes that we thought then we approved to send it out to the public for the 60-day review so they can have their input. And then it'll come back. That was pretty much the gist of the whole meeting.
Shack.
We had a lot of conversation about the new funding that's coming through from the state of Minnesota, and it went to the Shack to distribute it. And so we've got, that's one that we had talked about that Sam Lowe from Pine is on. And they were talking about the formula, which is going to be approved at the December meeting, and then we'll be getting that money, but that can only be used for public health. But just talking about the formula to use it and how to really get it out there so that it does counties like ours a lot of good. We don't have the people to do the grant writing and that type of stuff for some of the other things that are coming up. So it'll be interesting to see what they came up with next.
Extension.
Yeah, we had a meeting. One of the biggest things was 4-H. We're so fortunate to have a very good 4-H educator right now. And the numbers are going through really good. I was trying to find some numbers here, but they got so many re-enrollment. There are 19 first-year members already enrolled, including 16 who are first generation. So parents or grandparents weren't part of 4-H. So they're really capturing a lot of new people to 4-H, which is just such a great program. And I think it speaks a little to, we've had a little bit of stability there because we really ran through a lot of them in the last, 5-6 years. And that was tough. But and the other thing I thought was interesting was volunteers. They have enough volunteers right now. And she said, we're actually in a place where they're trying to find out where them volunteers fit better. So it's not that most people are just like, I need volunteers bodies, but they actually are sitting decent and they're trying to just get them where they work the best type of deal. So that's very positive to see. Otherwise, our ag educator, she's been working hard on a lot of stuff. And Master Gardener and our SNAP educator, they're all working on a bunch of stuff, so. About it.
And I took Terry's place. I got to get to extension for a while. It was really, really fun we hadn't been at an extension meeting for a while. We have some wonderful people doing great programs. Chemical Health Coalition.
The reason I couldn't go to the extension was because Chemical Health had a Zoom issue and they couldn't get it up. So there was no Chemical Health meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
East Central Solid Waste Commission, interesting thing, we, as you know, we got to build a new cell. But we don't have the permit yet, but we know we're gonna have to move a pile of dirt. And so, our new assistant director figured out a way that we just have to move the dirt. Not really part of our permit. So we let a bid to move 250,000 yards of dirt, which is a pretty big job. We had bids, we had 16 bidders. It's winter work, a lot of contractors want to keep their guys working and keep their equipment going. The bids range from 416,000 to 1.3 million. And they were all over the place, but there were about 2 or 3 that were down towards that bottom end and several towards the top end. So anyway, they're gonna move the dirt. And then I went to a really interesting meeting at the transfer station in Cambridge the other day. There's a outfit that it's a nonprofit that employs recently incarcerated felons that are getting out, and it's a transitional job that they provide for these people so they can build a resume. And their big thing is to keep things out of the waste stream. So they're actually at a transfer station pulling stuff that's usable, and they can take it to their store, their resale store, and sell it a dresser, a table, and just so happened when we were there, he said, "Oh, look at that. What's in that dumpster?" There was a brand new ping pong table. I almost wanted to take it home. I haven't played ping pong in years, but it was still in shrink wrap, but I suppose who knows why it got thrown away, but it was, yeah.
So how many years do we have left on that site?
Well, total roughly 50.
Oh, so
40. Maybe 40, maybe less. There's another dynamic that's happening, and that is there's a construction debris demo pit east of Rush City. And anybody that ever shingles a house or whatever from the North Metro all the way up here, that's where they take their shingles. That's if you're demoing a house, that's where it usually goes. They've been given notice. They got 7 years to do what they're doing, and then every demo pit is going to have to be aligned like a landfill is. And so that could change the whole operation a lot, because they take a lot of stuff. And if that all had to go to our landfill, it'd add, I don't know, 25% more to what we have to take in. We take in about 110,000 tons of material a year. Last month, we took 11,000. Think about that. 11,000 tons of garbage went into that hole, which is becoming a mountain now.
Have you accepted construction waste on that site to date? I mean, now, do you accept construction?
Get quite a bit of construction waste in our landfill, because contractors are smart. And if they're working up here, for instance, it's cheaper for them to smash it all up and throw it in a roll-off container, and it's less miles to get to the transfer station in Hinckley than it is to go to the demo pit. Even though it costs a little less, it's all about time and how fast they can turn those boxes. So we do get a fair amount of it now. But it's gonna come to an end at some point. We're gonna have to figure out what we're gonna do. Anyway. Let's see. East Central Regional Library.
Put on your calendars, December 2nd is Sandstone Library's grand opening. If you haven't been there, it's beautiful. They've got some really unique things that are happening at that library. And so December 2nd is the grand opening. The library they had a debit card that they used all the time, and they were scammed. And so they only got $5.98, which they're going to be getting back, but then they tried a really big one. So the bank contacted them. So they're going to be going to a credit card instead of a debit card because it's more secure. So it's sad that we have to find that out that way, right? We had been talking a while ago about naloxone access point pilots. And so right now, the two libraries that are willing to be they are there to give naloxone to people who feel like they may have a need. All the libraries are going to have naloxone in them in case somebody has an overdose at their libraries. But Cambridge and Chisago Lakes are going to be looked at to do to hand them out to people. So Isanti County said that they're not in favor of Cambridge being one of them, and so that might get voted down. I don't know what's going to happen there. That is about what I've got there.
All right, labor negotiations.
Yeah, we
Getting there.
yeah, we're getting there.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
members of the board. So we have tentative agreements with 8 bargaining units, 8 of the 9 that are open. Of those tentative agreements, all but 1 have been ratified by the bargaining unit. And at the last meeting, you recall, you approved 4. So 4 are finally done. All but 1 of them have been approved or ratified by the union and are just waiting finalization of the red line to present to the county board and the union. And then we are scheduled in early December to meet with the remaining unit.
All right.
I do have I think it's good. So you remember with the weird thing that we did for the jail to help recruitment? And we knew there was gonna be an impact, and I just want to talk about that. Everybody's gonna want to have that same, the retention bonus and stuff. I mean, every union asked or, pushed for that. And then we said, no, that was just an anomaly that happened in a gap in time. And it stood. So they all dropped it within the second round. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, we started one yesterday and finished it yesterday.
Cool.
And
That's the way to do it. One
Yeah.
meeting.
yeah, but it's starting to fall into place a little bit, so.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner Ludwig, we had a lot of meetings. I think there might have been 1 or 2 units that did not ask for the retention bonus
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah.
So I just want to be sure that that everyone didn't.
Oh, yeah, it just seemed,
That
there might have
was-
been 1 or 2 that didn't.
Yeah.
The bulk did. Yeah. Thank you for that, Dave.
Black Span meeting, that was postponed. Correct?
Yes.
Arrowhead counties,
I didn't make it, Mr. Chair.
zoning board.
I made that.
All right.
There was only 2 items, but 1 item was permitting, and that was a VRBO. And that's probably what it seems like every month. It's been those vacation rental by owners that are coming in. So that's an uptick, and I don't know where we sit there, where you want to do this. And then the other thing was the Pine County Shoreland Management Ordinance. amendment discussion, and the DNR had submitted a letter. It's all about that resort language I discussed last time for that Sand Lake thing. And then attorneys for Mark Lambert submitted letters countering the DNR. So the board took that and they worked through it. You know, and they did a great job, I thought, and they said, no, we're just gonna stay where we're at for now. And so, and the settlement, they did settle, the DNR and Mark. So.
MCIT DCYF, what is that?
Okay,
I know MCIT.
so this is the Department of Children, Youth and Families, State and
Okay.
County Intergovernmental Retreat. And how many counties would you say were there? 7 or 8 total?
Might have been more.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I don't have a count.
Yeah, this is one of those areas that I'm not real sure how we got invited to the table, but it was good to be at the table. And it's going to be continued work. This is the new committee that the state has come through with. It's going to be coming out of Department of Health Department of Human Services, and it's going to be going to the children, youth and families. And so talking about how we want to organize that committee, things that are important, things like communication, working with families, asking questions. You know, you've got families that come and they need help and they don't know what questions to ask. And so they might ask a question and they're told no, but really there's like maybe 5 other things that maybe we could help them with, or even if it's one other thing. So how we can ask questions, and with the Department of Youth and Families, how they need to ask questions, especially with them being brand new. Talked about just things that we'd like to see happen with this committee or with this department that we're not seeing in maybe other departments, or things that are working really good in other departments that we want to continue. It was a first step, and it was a really good meeting. Dave attended with me. Becky was not able to be there. But it will be ongoing, I believe.
And Mr. Chair, if I can maybe just give a step back and give a broader overview as to how this fits in the context of what came out of the last legislative session. So if you have been following this for a while and you think back to Governor Pawlenty, and there was the effort to create, like, I think it was 12-ish regional service delivery agencies, right?
Right.
So ever since then, there have been discussions and efforts to reform the Department of Human Services, and most of them have not been successful. The last session, there was legislation that will substantially change human services operations in the state of Minnesota. So where there previously has been one Department of Human Services, there will now be 3 agencies. So part of DHS is being broken off into DCTC, Direct Care and Treatment. Part of it is being broken off into this Department of Children, Youth and Families that Terry and I were at the meeting focused on just this one slice. And then everything else will remain in, I think, what's going to still be called Department of Human Services. And so the Department of Human Services is facilitating these conversations, I think, with much effort by AMC and the counties to say, we need to have a conversation about what this looks like. And so this new agency will also incorporate some activities that are currently in the Department of Education and some activities that are currently in the Department of Public Safety. So if you think about that, there's a lot on the table. And we know with the work that Pine County did with the SSIS modernization, there was a lot of money appropriated for computer and technology modernization that's going to run parallel to these reform efforts. So I guess hang on, because this is probably the first of many. And our human services county level, I think, is going to be stretched as reporting structures change at the state and as requirements at the state change. So we're going to need to keep Becky and her team close as well to make sure that they're getting the support and resources that they need.
One of the things that they said that's kind of interesting is that the list that's going over to these other committees is not finalized yet. So one of the women at our table said, well, what about WIC? This would be a place for WIC. And they said, it's a good idea, you know, so there's still room to move and grow. The other thing, I was talking to one of the ladies at my table, and I had mentioned that we have this up. I keep calling it the November 28th meeting. I have no clue what to call this meeting, but we were talking about how we were gonna have representatives from the state and tribal and county and DHS, DHS is gonna be there. And she said, can I be there? She said, I was saying, one of the things is our computer systems are horrible. And she said, can I be there? She said, there's a lot of money out there and you need to know how to ask for it to get it. So I think she's going to be attending that meeting too, to see if she can help us figure out how to get that money to help with our SSIS computer system, which would be great.
We'll share what the acronym is, what MCIT is, what DCYF is.
Okay, DCYF is that Department of Youth and Families. And what was the other one? MCIT,
CIT.
Minnesota County
County.
Intergovernmental Trust.
Yeah. Good question. I have
Eh,
a hard time with them too.
MCIT.
Minnesota
Counties Intergovernmental.
Counties Intergovernmental Trust. It's like our insurance company. NLX meeting with the city of Hinckley.
I went to that and
Oh, Doug.
yep, it was. There was two MinDOT. Representatives. So, that was the main engineer that's handling the project now, and then the other one was the guy who was there to do the traffic study, basically everything that has to do with 48, including foot traffic, bike traffic, vehicle traffic, and the impact that's gonna have if there's a train stop. I think the location of the stop was discussed a little bit, not much, because they want to put it there, but the city says, well, we're worried about that and we have other locations, so they're gonna address that between the city and it, because the BNSF abandoned that big yard by Slim Station across there. They left that now. That used to be their maintenance yard, so whatever. But the modeling studies and everything that was done prior to this, when I was still on the committee, and there's basically starting, there's so much time went by. But they have this big infusion of dollars from the state, and then they're out there with the competitive thing at the federal level. So they don't know for sure what they're gonna get there, but as he said, it looks pretty good for them, but I don't know. But so what it boiled down to me was they're just starting talks with BNSF again to use the track. There's been a communication, but there's nothing that's down on paper. And the speed of the track is still a 3.5 hour run. 5-minute stop in Hinckley, that's pretty much it.
Really?
They wanted a 5-minute stop on and off. There's just a lot of stuff they have to work out yet, but that's just the plan. And then I asked about the final mile that's from Superior. He said they have a workaround figured out there. So whatever, but I'm not trying to sound, it is what it is, right? So the train set that they're gonna put on there, it's gonna be 6 cars if it's a double stacker. And if it's a single stack cars, it's gonna be 10 to something. It's not, they don't want to block much, that kind of stuff. So I jumped on and said, well, what about all of our crossings? Because that's my concern in the county, and said, we're going to be at the table because we have roads, townships have roads, the crossing, and that all has not been addressed. They're going to have to address that, so a lot of those along State 23, our township roads and a couple county roads that come out there. Bruno has a fairly big crossing, but otherwise they're just open crossings. And all the people for years are not used to a 90-mile-an-hour train coming down that track. So those are issues that have to be worked out. And then it's going to be their model right now, their plan is a 4 trip a day.
4 up and 4 back? Or
1 up, 1 back, 4 total trips.
Okay.
They don't have the modeling numbers again, like they don't know what it's gonna be. And JJ, I don't know, you probably remember somewhere too, but I'm just going from memory. So was another issue I want to talk about was speed. The track has to be upgraded. And of course, if you're Burlington Northern, they're gonna say, yeah, you can upgrade my track. Maybe freight is still king. You know, freight rules the track. Oh, they have to add siding. That was the other thing. They don't, they're gonna have to be able to pull off. You know, so that, yeah, they don't know when that's gonna be, so they might have to add some siding for the stop, you know, which is another whole set of track.
So you're talking a pullover in Hinckley or throughout the track? They're gonna have to have pullover.
No, they'll have to time that, so that's why they have to stop.
Okay,
So, because freight is king, so wherever they have to stop, it's like if you ever went on 10, you'll see sometimes Amtrak is sitting there at Staples, because freight goes first. So there's issues to be worked out. Oh, I know. And then the other thing is it's a good 4 to 6 years away. Is that what you said, JJ?
Yeah, they've been working on it since 2007, but there were several things that they have no answers to. The crossings. One thing that we asked was who's going to pay to move all the utilities at the crossings? And you have to move power, electric, phone, fiber, gas, sewer, water. Usually that is just put the burden is put onto the company, and then they raise the prices to offset, you know, the money that they invested for moving. The 90-mile-an-hour thing came up. Yeah, Matt's right. Nobody's used to those speeds, and the tracks are not rated for that. And then all crossings have to be upgraded to accommodate that. We asked about who, for the law enforcement end of it. Railroads have their own law entity. They have their own rules. I believe railroads don't even have to pay in the Social Security. It's a whole separate thing. Couldn't get an answer if somebody is on the passenger train unruly or anything happens. Well, then who's going to take care of that? Do we have any agreement or understanding? Again, they had no answer for that. They want to stop at the school. I just quickly Googled train stoppings at schools. Some of the biggest problems in our nation is kids crawling over, under, around the trains trying to get to class on time. They don't have an answer for that. I was also just curious if you have somebody on that train, possibly maybe can't be within so many feet of a school due to a criminal record or anything. How do we address that now? If he clearly hopped on a train in Minneapolis and he ends up sitting in front of a school, they're not going to have anybody possibly selling tickets or at these stations. So they'll have no way to know who is getting on or off. As long as you can flash a ticket or scan your phone, you're on. And then ultimately it doesn't have to stop in Pine County. So I think everybody should know that. It does not have to stop here. That's one thing he was certain about. It can just go right on by. They can connect Minneapolis and Duluth, and it does not have to stop here.
I think didn't he say that manning the stop is going to be based on riders? Is that what he said?
You have some riders.
So if there's
And they don't anticipate.
if it's busy, then it's supposed to generate the funds to man stop or something.
And then like for the city of Hinckley, I just had mentioned to them that you have Staples over there. You have other cities that right now have light rail. Maybe they should reach out to them and see what their take is on this, because they've already lived it and went through it and are currently doing it now. I tried researching hopping on a train in Staples, and there was nobody there. There was nobody at their station. And Staples is quite a bit bigger. It's a bigger community, more businesses, a lot more to offer. And they don't seem to be manning the station there at all. Amtrak. And this is going to be part of Amtrak, correct? That's what he said.
Well, it's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like.
I know NLX had tried to get under Amtrak, because they're doing more funding.
Public funding for that. Private. It's the only way it works.
They figured that they'd get more money if they went under Amtrak, and then Amtrak had said no. So did Amtrak come back and say yes?
Well, Amtrak, I think, can decide which way it wants to go.
Right.
But they have more pull than.
Right.
They have a lot of pull. That's what I gathered at the meeting, so I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, keep us informed.
Yeah.
More to come.
Thanks, Terry, for letting me go with that.
You're welcome. Thank you for going.
Lakes and Pines, we met yesterday. We were updated on the Head Start program, which they have run forever. They saw a significant drop in participation during COVID, and it has not come back, and it's kind of a nationwide phenomena. But their funding, of course, is tied to head counts. And so if their numbers don't go up, they will claw back some of that money that they get to run Head Start, which would be significant. It'd be like $750,000 probably, just from our Lakes and Pines. So
Because there's no kids?
there's kids, but the parents have chosen not to enroll them in Head Start. So it's and the other thing is fuel assistance, and there's always issues at this time of year with people getting fuel assistance. Part of the problem is it's a federally funded program. The federal year starts 1st of November. So they can't do anything until the 1st of November. So in a year where it gets cold right away in November, they're behind the 8 ball. We had a little cold spell right off the bat, and then it's been mild. So they're able to catch up. The other problem, they still have an issue with getting enough staff. They're understaffed. So they're doing, I think, the best they can, but without people there to shuffle the papers, it just takes a long time to get through all that stack applications. So. And then I'm interested in this one, driving access to wealth and networks press conference.
It was interesting.
Went to that.
I did. This is the one that was up at Fond du Lac yesterday. And so they had conversation about, there was somebody from the federal government there that was talking about how the choosing and how they picked Fond du Lac, and it's the northern area, so it includes Mille Lacs Band, it includes Fond du Lac, it includes like St. Louis County, Carleton County, Pine County, Kanabec County, Aiken County. So it's the northern area. And how they picked them and how many applicants they had for this money, and then how they chose that. And I think they were one of 7, I think is what they had said. But it's to help entrepreneurship for minorities. And I talked to one of the elders afterwards and I said, so do you guys have students ready for the entrepreneur programs, or have you already figured out some of the things that are going to happen? And he looked at me and he goes, we don't need the money. We need property and we need infrastructure. And I thought, boy, that does it all, doesn't it? I mean, we all need the property and the infrastructure so that we can get these people going. But it was interesting. It was him and then a couple people from the tribe. They had the dancing and the drum ceremonies.
Any other meetings?
I have some others.
Okay.
So NACO Finance, Pension and Intergovernmental Affairs. It was a very depressing meeting. It was a hard one to sit through. So they brought in a gentleman that talked about where we are federally with our money, and we're not in a good place. Which I think all of us know that we're not in a good place with our money financially, but they talked about the total revenue made for 2023 ending in October is 4.4 trillion, and we've spent 6.5 trillion. So we borrowed, or that was for last year. So we borrowed 2 trillion. In 2022, we borrowed 1 trillion. And so they talked about how we were borrowing less and now we're borrowing more. Debt to GOP ratio is, debt is the size of the economy right now for us. Japan is the only other country that was in this position, and they're still sustainable. So we're in a hard place. Rising data could increase income growth. And then it says if the amount of auto benefits, Social Security will be cut by 50% by all people. So, I mean, the analysis that went out on this and how it's going to start affecting people, and it's not going to affect us for another 10 years or so. It's coming. It's going to be interesting. They said that there has to be 4 major cuts to keep to keep everything open with the way that it is today. So that's what they're gonna be working with with Congress and stuff on right now is what cuts need to be made so that we can stay substantial. And then I had NACO and they were talking a lot about, or on the TNT committee, tax and technology and technical. They were talking about the BEAD program right now is we have comment period for the counties until November 27th, or starting on November 27th, I'm sorry, and that would be done at internetforall.gov. They really need to hear people's comments on where we are with our broadband so that we can keep it moving and keep it going forward. And the counties can do their public comments on that. And did Leslie go off? We'll have to talk and see where we're at on that one, just to see, because I know that she stays so on top of this. She's very, very good. So they talked about voluntary supplemental and unforeseen health threats. So they were talking about the public promise for insurance. There's a new thing that they're working on where the counties can go through there, which is the public primary insurance and procurement. Focus is on pharmacy and county RX coalition. So that's one of the things that we're going to be getting more information on is another thing that another program, would it be called a program that NACO puts on that we can join? So like GoGov or some of the other ones, it's going to be one for medical and pharmacy. And
Carrie, can I just add, I have the public comment period on the BEAD program. So the BEAD program is the draft broadband equity access and deployment. So that's BEAD, and the draft is available and comment period runs through December 12th.
Minnesota was one of the ones that were open prior or earlier than they needed to be. So that was a good.
And it's all coordinated at the state level through the Department of Employment and Economic.
Mm-hmm. And then I did NACO artificial intelligence, and that it was interesting because Kevin Anderson, who's one of the commissioners from Hennepin County, was on that board, and he actually used to be in IT, and that was one of his. He loved it, and so they did it where they had automatic phone answering. So they started it with COVID, where anybody that would call it would just go right to the AI phones. He said that on September 20, or as of September 20 of 2022, they had 373 live chats. And then they had 3,898 phone calls. And then December of 2022, they had 179 live chats with 3,238 phone calls. And they said that it works really good when you have bilingual. So you can go in there and one county said that they have 20 different languages in their county. So it really helps because there's no way they can do staff for that. One county had 2 positions at 40 hours a week that just did redacting of information. And they said they're doing it all by AI now. And so they're saving those 2 employees for all the time that they're taking to redact, and now they can do other things. So there's some kind of interesting things out there that the counties are able to do with that. It'll be interesting to see where it goes when we have such a horrible workforce shortage. And that's it.
All right. I've just got 2 things. One is I failed to thank Leslie for her work on our broadband, because I look back and all the work we did on broadband never really had an iota until Leslie came on board and we got our first grant.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote that grant. We got the grant. Since that, I don't even know how many, but we've actually got fiber in the ground and people are being hooked up. So I want to thank her. And then the only other thing I have is, remember tomorrow night, you set your scales back 15 pounds.
For Thanksgiving.
For Thanksgiving, and then you'll be set. Any other business? If not, we'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.